Repatriation Truth Commission, meeting in Accra, issued a demand for reparations from all those nations of Western Europe and the Americas and institutions who participated and benefited from the slave trade and colonialism. The sum suggested as adequate compensation, based on estimates of the number of human lives lost to Africa during the slave trade, as well as an assessment of the worth of the gold, diamonds, and other minerals taken from the continent during colonial rule, was $777 trillion. Given that more than 3 million of the 10 million or so Africans who crossed the Atlantic as slaves before 1850 were shipped in British vessels, the putative British reparations burden could be in the region of £150 trillion. Such a claim may seem fantastic, but the idea was given some encouragement at the United Nations World Conference Against Racism, Racial Discrimination, Xenophobia and Related Intolerance, held in Durban in the summer of 2001. The conference's final report acknowledged that slavery and the slave trade were a crime against humanity, of which people of African descent, Asians, and people of Asian and indigenous peoples were victims. In another of the conference's declarations, colonialism was casually lumped together with slavery, the slave trade, apartheid, and genocide, in a blanket call to UN member states to honour the memory of the victims of past tragedies. Noting that some states have taken the initiative to apologise and have paid reparation where appropriate for grave and massive violations committed, the conference called on all those who have not yet contributed to restoring the dignity of the victims to find appropriate ways to do so. These calls have not gone unheeded in Britain itself. In May 2002, the director of the London-based think tank Demos, which may be regarded as the avant-garde of New Labour, suggested that the Queen should embark on a world tour to apologise for the past sins of empire as a first step to making the Commonwealth more effective and relevant. The news agency that reported this remarkable suggestion added the helpful gloss, "Critics of the British Empire, which at its peak in 1918 covered a quarter of the world's population and area, say its huge wealth was built on oppression and exploitation." At the time of writing, one BBC website, apparently aimed at schoolchildren, offered the following equally incisive overview of imperial history. The empire came to greatness by killing lots of people less sharply armed than themselves and stealing their countries, although their methods later changed. Killing lots of people with machine guns came to prominence as the army's tactic of choice. It fell to pieces because of various people like Mahatma Gandhi, heroic revolutionary protester, sensitive to the needs of his people. The questions recently posed by an eminent historian on BBC television may be said to encapsulate the current conventional wisdom. How, he asked, did a people who thought themselves free end up subjugating so much of the world? How did an empire of the free become an empire of slaves? How, despite their good intentions, did the British sacrifice common humanity to the fetish of the market? Beneficiaries. Thanks to the British Empire, I have relatives scattered all over the world, in Alberta, Ontario, Philadelphia, and Perth, Australia. Because of the Empire, my paternal grandfather, John, spent his early 20s selling hardware and hooch to Indians in Ecuador. Not a colony, of course, but part of Britain's informal economic empire in Latin America. I grew up marvelling at the two large oil paintings he brought back of the Andean landscape, which hung luminously on my grandmother's living room wall, and the two Indian dolls, grim-faced and weighed down with firewood, incongruous beside the china figurines in her display cabinet. Thanks to the Empire, my other grandfather, Tom Hamilton, spent more than 3 years as an RAF officer fighting the Japanese in India and Burma. His letters home, lovingly preserved by my grandmother, are a wonderfully observant and eloquent account of the Raj in wartime, shot through with that sceptical liberalism which was the core of his philosophy. I can still recall the joy of leafing through the photographs he took while stationed in India.